Welcome back to True North Sports Talk Podcast, home for Toronto sports and all things sports in Canada. We do talk about everything Canadian and American, don't you worry. But we are looking at the biggest stories for this week in baseball. Now, as usual, when I record these, to my left we have the Blue Jays on the screen, and currently just waiting for that little scoreboard to pop up. It's coming back from commercial. The Jays are up 2-0 as we speak. It's a wild day in the world of baseball. We sit here and record this episode with one of the biggest stories in all of baseball. It's not a home run, it's not a no-hitter, not a wild trade. But in a bit of shocking news, after a 17-1 victory yesterday, the Boston Red Sox announced that they had dismissed manager Alex Cora and 5, so not just Cora, but 5 other members of his coaching staff on the same night as we mentioned that they blew out the Orioles 17-1. We are talking about, so far, I think it's the only managerial firing of the 2026 season, but it is certainly going to be one of the most oddest, based on the fact that this is a guy who in 2019, 18, somewhere around there, took the Red Sox to the World Series. He has been a very steady force in the rebuild that the Red Sox are on. I mean, they had a really tough year last year. They had a very rough beginning to the year this year. So I guess you could say not entirely surprising, but it was a little bit. And so we'll get into that. We have a lot to cover today. We're going around the world of baseball, breaking down some of the hottest teams. There's some teams that are struggling. There's injury headlines to talk about that are shaping the early part of this season, especially with Toronto having as many as 11 players on the injured list. If I'm not wrong, I saw Varsho playing last night, which means there's one less guy on the Blue Jays injured list. We thought we might see George Springer sometime this weekend. I'm not seeing him at the moment. We have a Blue Jays debut today. I don't want to mess up the kid's name. I don't remember it off the top of my head just now. And then we're going to look at the Blue Jays with basically a full injury update. And we got some real good news on the pitching front yesterday or the day before. And so we're going to talk about Alex Cora in more detail and what that could mean for the Red Sox. So this is This Week in Baseball on True North Sports Talk Podcast, and let's dive into it. 4 weeks into the Major League season, we have some very clear storylines emerging, and we'll start at the top because the Los Angeles Dodgers are basically operating at a different level from the rest of the league. The way they play things, the way they're willing to spend money to the tune of $1 billion in deferred money, you would kind of hope so. If they were at the bottom of the league, under 500, losing all the time, you'd be way more concerned. But as we said, we're talking about the defending World Series champs here. They are, to start the season, or to start the week even, 15-6. They're atop of the National League West and every other power ranking system you can find. The headline is Shohei Ohtani, as you would hope, being as he's got the biggest contract in baseball, who's not named Juan Soto. And he is doing things that have never been done before, because nobody like him has ever really existed in baseball since, some guy named Babe Ruth. On the mound, he's been absolutely dominant through his first several starts. He's carrying a sub-1 ERA. There's only one guy I can think of off the top of my head that's even close. And this week, that guy's team refused to make him the closer. He's got 18 strikeouts, 0 home runs allowed. He pitched a gem against the San Francisco Giants this week, 6 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts. He snapped a 53-game on-base streak last night, I believe, where he went 0 for 4, and he was the DH, and he's dealing with a hit by a pitch from earlier in the week. Now, yeah, this team went out. They spent a lot of money in the offseason again, but they're not invincible, as we saw with Edwin Diaz, their new closer. He's had a bit of a rough stretch. He's got a bit of a bloated ERA early in the season, and then he went down with elbow surgery. So that's been a topic for the Dodgers, even though they've been really, really good. Dave Roberts wouldn't confirm his availability at one point in the week, but again, then he ended up with surgery. And at this point, they're pretty much the clear favorite to be in the World Series. And we'll just say in the World Series. Well, I don't like predictions around here. I'm not saying they won't win it, but it'd be nice if they didn't, for everyone involved. So, noting also that Mookie Betts is still missing time with an oblique injury since early April. We'll probably cover that a little bit more once we get to the injuries, but he's trending to be back shortly. So when this lineup is fully healthy and firing on all cylinders, probably the most complete roster in all of baseball. One of the other powerhouses early on in the season, and you could say this is a nice thing to see happen, is after a couple of funky seasons, it seems like the Atlanta Braves are back to being the Atlanta Braves. They are 15-7, playing like the best version of themselves. Austin Riley has a bit more maturity on him. He's come alive after a slow start. Hitting opposite field home runs. For home run hitters, you love to see that because it means they're seeing the ball really well. They're allowing it to get deep in the zone before they're even swinging. Driving in runs in bunches. Matt Olson is being Matt Olson. He leads the Braves in on-base percentage, slugging, and OPS. He leads all Major League first basemen, that includes Vladimir Guerrero Jr., in doubles. Spencer Strider, who missed most of last year with an injury, is just weeks away from making his season debut, so that will be just, they don't have to trade nobody, but they get that much better adding him back to the roster. That's a lot like how the Jays will be in over the next couple of months. It'll be like they're making trades, but they're not. But they are adding elite talent back to their roster. So that's kind of how the Braves are doing with Strider coming back. The Braves currently have the lowest team ERA in all of baseball, ranked at or near the top of the league in home runs. Also, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't put a lot of stock in home runs because, say as a team, you have 10,000 at-bats in a year, and as a team you only hit maybe 150 home runs. That's not really that important, as some people like to say, because what do you do for that other 9,850 at-bats, right? So yeah, the home run is great for the crowd and it gets them going and you could score runs in bunches that way. But overall, I don't put a lot of stock in the home run. For the Braves, their late inning tandem of Raisel Iglesias and Robert Suarez is being called one of the most formidable bullpen combos in the game right now. They swept the Phillies in Philadelphia recently to just let the league know, hey, we're back. The New York Yankees are back atop the AL East. They had been dethroned by the Tampa Bay Rays, which going into the season might have surprised some. It did not surprise this host, though, as the fact that I know they're back at Trop. The Rays, even though they had a down year last year, always seem to find a way to bounce back. They seem to find the players they need always. They are 7.5 games ahead, talking to the Yankees here, of last place Boston as of today. And as of Alex Cora's firing, they have an 8-game winning streak that just ended. And then they went back to winning. Aaron Judge has 9 home runs through his first 24 games. That's 1 per every 3 games. And he just turned 34 years old this week. Jose Caballero has been an unexpected hero at the bottom of their batting order. He's homered in back-to-back games, putting together a 3-game multi-hit streak. That's pretty good. Ben Rice, surprisingly, as up till now, he has been a liability on offense, but he's been an early offensive MVP for the Yankees. He leads all qualified hitters in on-base percentage at .476, in slugging at .800 and OPS with a 1.276 and a WRC plus of 246. I didn't mistype that, guys. This guy is on fire, which for him is very unexpected. Now let's talk about something that's a little more expected. And that is Cam Schlittler. This guy went up against Trey Yesavage in the playoffs last year, the ALDS. This kid is the real deal. And that's coming from a diehard Blue Jays fan. I'll be as objective as possible at all times while doing this podcast. And this kid's for real. He leads all American League starters in strike to walk percentage and FWAR. Carlos Rodon is working his way back from injury with a high A rehab start. So that's good news for all Yankees fans out there. Giancarlo Stanton has dealt with calf tightness this week, but the Yankees' depth has been able to give him the time and the space to work his way through that. Hopefully for all Yankees fans, this isn't one of his ongoing issues where he doesn't play much this year. Hopefully he's able to bounce back. He is 1 more year older. He's closer to 40 than he is 30. So we'll see how long it takes him to work his way back. This team is built to stay up or near the top of the AL East. Don't forget about our Blue Jays Yankees fans. They're a-coming once they get a little more healthy. So we expect this year in the East to come down to September baseball being very important into October baseball being uber important between at least 3, if not 4, of the American League East teams. The Yankees figured to be at or near the top of that mix, like they were for the last, say, 3 seasons. The Mets, the other team in the Subway Series, for the second year in a row, has probably been the biggest disappointment in all of baseball. The Mets perennially spend a ton of money. They started this year with huge expectations. They have a massive payroll, as we said. Juan Soto with the biggest contract in baseball, although he spent a good chunk of the first 23 games injured, as he had that, I believe it was a hamstring injury. Pete Alonso signed with Baltimore, so they lost him. They signed Bo Bichette away from the Blue Jays, even though the Blue Jays didn't really try and keep him, much to the chagrin of all Blue Jays fans. But so far this season, he has looked uncomfortable, shall we say, playing third base, maybe not hitting in the order where he's used to hitting. It just has not gone well for Mr. Bichette. Lindor has been injured recently. This Mets team, they fell to 7-15 after a 10-game losing streak. Only 4 teams in baseball history have made the playoffs after a losing streak of 10 or more games. And right now, as of this recording, this Mets team does not look like a playoff team. Juan Soto, as we mentioned, it wasn't a hamstring, it was a right calf. And they are expected to miss, or he has missed, 2 to 3 weeks, just recently returning. Their bullpen has been a revolving door. Their run differential is among the worst in baseball. And it's getting ugly real quick in Queens. They're starting to look like the White Sox or the Athletics of last year, meaning they're just god awful. And it's just funny. Not funny haha kind of way, but funny in that painful baseball kind of way. The Phillies have also been a massive disappointment at 8-13. At last we checked, and the NL East, that was supposed to be a 2-team race between New York and Philadelphia, it's becoming the Braves just running away with it. The Mets in a free fall, and everyone else just trying to catch Atlanta. And when the Miami Marlins have a better record than you, it's time to look in the mirror. Some other storylines worth noting from this week. The Pittsburgh Pirates are one of the surprise stories of the early season. They took a couple of games from the Brewers this weekend. They had a 6-0 final yesterday, and they had a 10-inning game earlier in the week, and they are playing some of the best baseball in the National League Central. O'Neal Cruz is slashing .339. As a batter, that's a line most batters dream of. I'll just give you the full slash now though. .339, 400, and .644. He's got 5 home runs, 5 steals. They've added Ryan O'Hearn and Brandon Lowe, and they have been some pretty big difference makers. So out of the Central, don't sleep on those Pittsburgh Pirates. They're going to give Milwaukee a good hard run for their money. Now, a team that had a really disappointing year last year seems to have bounced back just a little bit this season. That being the Texas Rangers. They have quietly been pretty solid this year. They're 7th in ERA as a staff. Jacob deGrom, their ace, threw a gem against the Dodgers in a series that made everyone's eyes widen a little bit. Wyatt Langford right now is day-to-day with a quad issue, but otherwise, they're healthy and in a good place, and they're right in the wild card conversation as we speak. The Chicago Cubs, another NL Central team, they're struggling and got devastating news this week. The 2025 Rookie of the Year runner-up in Cade Horton underwent season-ending elbow surgery. So he's gone for the rest of the year. He was supposed to be a cornerstone in that rotation. Matthew Boyd and a couple of relievers also hit the injured list this month, and that has left the Cubs, much like the Blue Jays, having a very tough month. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they're getting hot despite some of the injuries they have. Jordan Lawler has a wrist fracture, Gabriel Moreno's dealing with back tightness, Carlos Santana has an adductor strain, and yet the Diamondbacks have won back-to-back series and are clearly a live team. Our Blue Jays experienced that last week or the week before as they had a series with the Diamondbacks before they went to Los Angeles. Merrill Kelly is slated to return from injury soon, which is only going to make that team better. In the AL West, the Houston Astros have been disappointing to say the least. We thought they were going to be a much better team this year. They're sitting at 10-18. That is last in the West right now. They are without their longtime manager, and more on that in a moment. The Oakland Athletics made a surprising run to first place in the AL West after going 5-1 on a New York road trip against the Yankees and the Mets. The A's are looking fairly legitimate right now. If you watched that team at all last year and saw Denzel Clark, Brent Rooker, some of their young studs they got going right now, although Rooker just hit the injured list with an oblique strain, that's not a quick injury to recover from. And then you look at the back end of their bullpen with Mason Miller. Everyone in baseball is talking about that guy right now. He's been unhittable in 11 appearances. He has 2 hits, 0 runs, 27 strikeouts, and 2 walks. He's 8 for 8 in save chances. Wouldn't that look good in the back of the Blue Jays bullpen right now, considering they are now closing by committee? Analytics people are saying if he keeps this pace, for the first time, I think, since Eric Gagne might be the name, the last bullpen guy to get a Cy Young or Cy Young consideration. But that's just some absurd numbers. All right, so let's talk about our Blue Jays. For the first time in a few episodes, we actually have some genuinely good news to lead with. We've had trouble talking about the Blue Jays recently. They have been struggling mightily, to say the least. But the Blue Jays are back to 10-14. They're still leading 2-0 here to my left. Patrick Corbin is pitching well into the top of the 4th so far. And we found out some good news. On Tuesday, well, before we get to that, the AL East, we are 2.5 games back of the wild card, and the direction is improving. So, Tuesday, the good news. Trey Yesavage is going to join the rotation. Now, I've said all along that I would prefer he stayed at AAA for the better part of this season. However, with Max Scherzer getting tuned up the other night and just the way this pitching staff is going, Trey hasn't looked like Trey in his rehab starts. He's had some issues defensively behind him where he had unearned runs. But he could and should be a good boost to this rotation. He'll be taking on those Boston Red Sox we talked about a little bit earlier. And that could be a good game to acclimate himself back into a major league game, as that team, not going to say they should sweep, but they should handle fairly well. The reason I say that is if you go by the Cito Gaston philosophy, at least win every series. And by the fact that he's on my screen right now, seems like they're talking about him on the broadcast. Manager John Schneider confirmed this yesterday, saying that Yesavage has checked every box in his rehab. He had a shoulder impingement, is what they called it. And the team is making sure that, and this is the quote, once we hit go, we don't have to hit pause. So he's set to start Tuesday, which means his 2026 debut comes against the team, as we mentioned, that just fired their manager. Baseball is a beautiful and yet at the same time a very strange sport. As we said, Yesavage has been working back from a right shoulder impingement. His rehab numbers were not pretty. He had an 8.59 ERA in 14 2/3 minor league innings, but he struck out 22 batters in that stretch. So the stuff is there. The concern was health. We know the talent is there. Anyone who I talked to about Trey Yesavage, I always said, and I will always say to a pitcher returning from injury, I'll say it about Barrios, I'll say it about Bieber, I don't care what the results are, so that 8 whatever ERA, I'm not worried about that. How did he recover after the game? And what did his pitches look like? Did they bite and move and dart the way they're supposed to around the zone? Was there swing and miss there? Now, you could wonder why I don't give that kind of leeway to someone like a Jeff Hoffman when he's not getting the results at the big league level. And Ross Atkins, in his media availability, really talked about whiff rate and certain elite stats that Hoffman had, and really pointed to that with him. And I'm like, I don't buy it, because I've been watching the games and I know the stats are what they are. You can't argue the number itself, but I can tell you what I see with my eyes. And what I saw was a pitcher whose body language didn't add up. He looked defeated a lot on the mound. The way his pitches moved, the ones that were getting hit. And he just wasn't consistent enough in his location. So the numbers being what they are, the eye test tells me he just is not where he needs to be. So this is why I say, throw the numbers out the window, because Jeff Hoffman had great numbers. Trey Yesavage has horrible numbers. But what I want to know is, how's the pitch moving? How's he recovering? Because that's the important stuff in rehab, as opposed to a guy who's been there all through spring training, all the way up to this point of the season. If that had have been Yesavage and he had these numbers, we'd be having the Jeff Hoffman conversation. So it's two apples and oranges, right? We're not comparing them, but I'm just saying is that the eye test, how does the pitch move? What's the body language? How's the recovery? Those are the major factors for someone recovering from injury. So we're not worried about the talent. We know it's there. We know he's healthy and feeling much better. We knew someone had to be the odd man out when he returned. The way Patrick Corbin's pitching today and has pitched since he got here, that's caused Eric Lauer, who has had some discontent with management so far this season. And he hasn't been real great, a 6.75 ERA, a 1.54 with hitters in position. I mean, that's not good. So he's moved into that long relief role. Should a Max Scherzer get lit up or something like that happens, they can now have a long reliever that they didn't really have up until this point in the season, but we kind of knew that once guys got healthy, that we'd have some long relief depending on who was available. Now, with Bieber and Barrios coming back, I could actually see Lauer's days as a Blue Jay being a little bit numbered, which I never thought I'd say coming into the season. Remembering what Yesavage did in the fall, he made his major league debut in September, fanned 11 in his first playoff start, and then in Game 5 of the World Series against the Dodgers, that was the biggest start of his life. He threw 7 dominant innings, struck out 12. He is not afraid of the major league moment. Getting him back is important, especially at this point in the season. We need that type of pitching. And let's go through the full injury report. Speaking of guys who are injured and coming back. So first guy on the list, Trey Yesavage, returning Tuesday. We just covered this. Dalton Varsho left knee discomfort, quad tightness, left Friday's game against Arizona, so that's a week ago from 2 days ago. In the third inning, he was pulled as a precaution. No MRI has been ordered as of the latest reports. He's considered day-to-day. Before the injury scare, he was .262, .333, and .462 with 3 home runs and 7 RBIs. He's been a fairly bright spot in the lineup for the Jays. He's also a Gold Glove defender, even though the reason I know he's back is he missed a diving catch last night that would have really helped for Louis Varland not to give up his first run of the season. But he is a Gold Glove defender. That was a long way to run last year, and the team cannot afford to lose him for much longer. Jose Barrios had that right elbow stress fracture. He's on the 60. His first rehab start in Dunedin went okay, 47 pitches, 2 2/3 innings. The raw numbers were rough, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, though he did strike out 3. His second rehab start in Dunedin is scheduled for Wednesday, the day this will air. So that will be the day after Yesavage makes his start. Ross Atkins confirmed his next step. After that will be AAA. Ross Atkins quoted as saying Jose Barrios' next rehab start will be at AAA Buffalo. He could be an option for the rotation after that, but we want to make sure we get it right. A May return is possible. A June return could be more realistic for him. Either way, Barrios is coming. He's getting very close. If he pitches like he did in spring training, it will be a massive boost to the rotation. Jimmy Garcia, his rehab from elbow surgery. Here's the latest wrinkle on Garcia. The Blue Jays transferred him from the 15 to the 60 on Saturday. That means he won't be eligible to return until late May at the very earliest. It's a disappointment because we have been hoping that he would actually be here around now. The move makes clear that the organization does not want to rush this. When Garcia comes back, he will. His fastball will be a weapon that this bullpen definitely needs. Shane Bieber, right elbow inflammation on the 60-day DL, still building up. He's been throwing off mounds. The team feels good about his long-term trajectory. Mid to late May still remains the target. This will be another boost to the Blue Jays rotation. Once all of them are back, think about this. You got Gausman, Cease. You got Yesavage, potentially, although I'd rather see him go to the minors. Then you got Barrios, Bieber, Scherzer. You got 6 guys there that legit Like, other than Scherzer, who's a fifth? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm only saying that about Scherzer because of his age and where he's at in his career and what we saw the last time out. Nothing against him personally. He's a great pitcher. He's got that competitive drive you want around your team. He's great in the clubhouse. We love Max. Don't get me wrong. I advocated for him to come back from the last pitch of the World Series. So, nothing against him. But you got 6 legit guys that you want here day in and day out as your starting rotation. Then you have Patrick Corbin. You got 7 legit starters. Cody Ponce, when he comes back next season, you're looking pretty good if you ask me. George Springer had a left big toe fracture. He's on a 10-day. He's looking pretty good. Again, I thought we might see him today. I don't see him as yet. He is on the bench with his team, though. You had Eloy Jimenez take his place. And as per Blue Jays Nation, Springer has taken a step forward in his recovery this week. So there is hope that over the next week, 2 weeks, hopefully we'll see him back. Again, I said there was whispers this weekend. But we shall see. Sooner rather than later, though. Alejandro Kirk, he had his surgery on April 7th. He had a screw inserted into his thumb. He's still probably 6 weeks away. Mid-May, Brandon Valenzuela, Tyler Heineman are doing what they can behind the plate. Addison Barger, his left ankle sprain. The team is being cautious with him. As they should. They're doing okay without him, even though they could use his bat protecting Vladdy in the order. We're almost getting to the place where Okamoto is going to be hitting fourth behind Vladdy and be some real good protection there. They have no firm date of return for Addison right now. They've felt his absence. And he could return around the same time as Springer, depending. Cody Ponce, as we said, ACL sprain, had surgery on the 15th. And his season is basically over. Bowden Francis, we all know, Tommy John, out till next year. Santander, September maybe, as always. And hopefully never. And I don't even mean next year. Hopefully never. So, what's actually been working for the Blue Jays? Lately, they've been playing decent. Kevin Gausman won Saturday's game 5-3. He's now 2-1, giving up 2 earned runs and 6 hits in 6 2/3 yesterday. Dylan Cease. They've been the 2 pillars holding this rotation together. Fox Sports is quoted as saying the Blue Jays would be in a much darker place if it wasn't for Gausman and Cease. And they called them the team's early co-MVPs. Kazuma Okamoto hit 2 home runs so far that just make you go, that's Joe Carter territory or Jose Canseco territory. Oh dear. 425 and 430 feet into the WestJet flight deck. That's pretty darn good. So he is coming around to Major League pitching. He went through a bit of a rough spot. He made some adjustments, which is what you do in baseball. And he continues to grow into his role. Like I said, they could use him soon to be as protection behind Vladdy. Andreas Jimenez added a 2-run double on a ball that landed on the foul line. Jimenez is he's always been, I guess, quietly one of the best defensive players on the team. And when he gives you things offensively, it's just an added bonus. We've mentioned this several times. Jeff Hoffman's days as the Blue Jays closer, at least for the time being, appear to be over. Schneider dropped a very cryptic answer about Hoffman's future when asked about the 9th inning, and he officially turned to Louis Varland for the save opportunity on Saturday. Varland has a .64 ERA. His first run allowed of the season was on Saturday. He has a 107 with hitters in position and a 21-4 walk to strikeout ratio. So meaning he strikes out 21 batters and only walks 4 in that same span. And that is through 14 innings. He got a bit shaky in his first save opportunity, but ended up closing it out with authority. This looks like a passing of the torch almost, and it would probably be the right call. Cleveland just scored right now. Varsho is in center field today. And yeah, we need Corbin to clean this up a little bit. Runners on first and second with nobody out right now. At 77 pitches, you could imagine the Blue Jays bullpen is ready. That was a pitch at the top of the zone, so it wasn't even like it was a horrible pitch, but it was kind of middle at the top of the zone. Back to Hoffman. He hasn't been the same since mid-season last year, really. I mean, when he's on, he's really on, but he just, if you pitch him more than one day in a row or too close together, it just doesn't work out. And again, since that home run in the World Series that tied the game, he just looks real shaky right now. One thing we should highlight, Scherzer, for all the concerns, just passed another significant milestone on the mound. He's approaching 3,500 career strikeouts, which would make him only the 4th pitcher in Major League history to reach that mark. He has struggled at moments this season, but he is still Max Scherzer, and history is within his reach. Alright, so let's talk about Alex Cora. We're going to talk about his story, who might replace him. Some strange thoughts may have him as being the one to replace himself. Give me one moment, y'all. That was not supposed to happen. Alright, so Alex Cora. Saturday night, April 25th, 2026, the Boston Red Sox have just completed a 17-1 demolition of the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards. Garrett Crochet was magnificent. The offense finally woke up a little bit. It was the most one-sided victory so far of Boston's season. The largest margin of victory in any manager's final game in the modern era. And according to Elias Sports Bureau, and just hours later, the Red Sox fired Alex Cora. The timing was very surprising, stunning if you will. You beat a team by 16 runs and then you get fired? Think about that a little bit. Cora posted a message on social media around 4 a.m. Sunday morning with one word, and that is happy, with a smiling emoji. And you know what? You kind of have to respect that. He knows what this situation is. He's been here. He's won a World Series. Doesn't have anything left to prove, really. And he's just at peace right now. So, let's set the context. Alright, double play for the Blue Jays. So they're 1 out away from not giving up any more runs. And back to our context. The Red Sox are 10-17, entering the series finale against the Orioles. They're in last place in the American League East, 7.5 games behind the Yankees. They're coming off an 89-win season in 2025 when they made the wild card round. They lost to the Yankees in said wild card round. They spent big in the offseason, adding Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez, Wilson Contreras, although he's a strange duck that hasn't worked out real well, Caleb Durbin, and multiple relievers. Expectations were legitimate for this club. Instead, they went 2-8 in their first 10 games, and then they went 1-5. Then another rough stretch. The offense, despite all of that talent, has been utterly broken. Boston is tied for last in the MLB in home runs with 18. They rank 20th in runs scored and 26th in OPS for a team that was supposed to challenge for the AL East. Those numbers are just not acceptable in Boston. We haven't even really talked about Jarren Duran yet. And NBC Sports Boston laid it out clearly. Roman Anthony has struggled. Jarren Duran hasn't been himself. Trevor Story is inconsistent. Marcelo Mayer hasn't fully taken off. Masataka Yoshida is the perennial DH logjam problem that never got resolved. CBS Sports noted that Craig Breslow's run prevention strategy has really backfired on the team. They prioritized pitching and defense, but failed to address the outfield and designated hitter depth issues. And that forced an awkward rotation of Anthony Duran, Yoshida through those spots with no one getting consistent at bats. So who pays the price? Well, the manager pays the price. That's baseball. Sadly, you can't fire all the players because then who would play? The managers can manage and put all the plans in place and talk till they're blue in the face, but the execution comes down to the players. And as Craig Breslow said at the press conference, we have 135 games ahead of us. By acting today, it gives us almost a full season's worth of run to take advantage of a fresh start. Fair enough. Question is whether firing the manager and 5 of his coaches fixes a problem with the roster construction, which Breslow should kind of take responsibility for himself, seeing how he's the one who gives Cora the players to work with. So, who is Chad Tracy? Well, Tracy is 40 years old, was the manager of the AAA Worcester Red Sox, the Woo Sox, since 2021. This being his 5th year in that role. He was a 3rd-round draft pick of the Texas Rangers in 2006. He played 9 years of professional baseball as a catcher, reaching as high as AAA, but never making the big leagues. Sounds a little bit like John Schneider. He posted 159 home runs and 706 RBIs in the minors. He had a genuinely solid career just below the highest level. He went on to manage Low A Burlington, High A Inland Empire in the Angels organizations before the Red Sox brought him in. His father is Jim Tracy, who managed the Dodgers, the Pirates, the Rockies for 11 seasons and has 775 career managerial wins. So baseball is literally in Chad Tracy's blood. Breslow's reasoning for naming him interim was clear. Tracy has managed most of the current Boston roster through Worcester. He knows Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, even Jarren Duran. He knows this young core because he has built relationships with these players. He's demonstrated an ability to get the most out of this group. And I think equally important is his ability to build relationships with the veteran guys and earn trust and respect. That's a quote from Craig Breslow. One notable detail, Tracy was leaving midway through a Woo Sox game when he got the call. He has 499 wins as a professional manager. His first win as a Red Sox interim manager will be career win number 500. If that's not a story, I don't know what is. Tied 2-2 with 2 out and the bases loaded. Braden Fisher on the mound getting a visit from Pete Walker. He is not an interim with a keep seat warm mandate. Breslow specifically said when asked about a permanent hire, it could also be that Chad is exactly what we're looking for. The door is wide open for Tracy to make this job his own, and that's smart, as if the team responds, starts winning, if Tracy brings in guys that are able to talk to these guys and get them going, maybe you have found your guy. The firing's beyond Cora, because Cora wasn't alone. 5 coaches were also dismissed: hitting coach Peter Fatz, bench coach Ramon Vasquez, third base coach Kyle Hudson, assistant hitting coach Dylan Lawson, and Major League hitting strategy coach Joe Cronin. A guy I might have tabbed as the next manager, Jason Varitek. And yes, it is that Jason Varitek, who was captain Red Sox for 20 years. He won World Series at least twice, maybe 3 times as a player. He was the game planning and run prevention coach, and he has been reassigned to a new role within the organization. Those details are pending. Ooh, that's a failed challenge. Let me guess. Yep, Valenzuela. Details are pending. There were conflicting reports about whether Varitek will actually accept the new role, which is an intriguing subplot if you're a Red Sox fan. AA Portland manager Chad Epperson steps in as interim third base coach. Worcester hitting coach Colin Hetzler joins the big league hitting staff. Cora's legacy and what it means? Well, to be honest about this, Alex Cora is one of the best managers in this generation, you could argue. He won 108 games in his first year as a big league manager in 2018. He won a World Series, and he was .620 and .541 in 7.5 seasons with Boston. Yes, he was suspended and let go for the sign-stealing scandal and then rehired, but when he came back in 2021, he got Boston to the ALCS. He managed under constrained budgets for years. When Chaim Bloom was dismantling the roster, he survived last place finishes, and last year he got the team to the wild card at least. The honest truth, though, is that, as per MLB Trade Rumors and NBC Sports Boston both acknowledged, is that the roster construction under Breslow really has failed. The run prevention strategy didn't work and possibly couldn't work as the roster is constructed. The lineup was put together poorly. The offseason additions didn't really address the weaknesses this team had. Firing Cora might be the right move for a fresh start, but unless Breslow also does his job and brings in the personnel that's necessary, doesn't matter who coaches the Red Sox, they're going to have issues. And basically right now, they're just shuffling the deck chairs. SI.com this week noted 2 potential landing spots for Cora in the near future. I would hate to see Rob Thompson out in Philadelphia, but that's a possibility. The Houston Astros, who are 10-18, Joe Espada hasn't turned things around there. Cora has familiarity there. Now, you might say he could go there, but I really don't think he should. He's synonymous with that sign stealing that went on there. And that just, from an optics standpoint, would be a very bad idea. He was their bench coach on the 2017 World Series winning team that has that asterisk with it. I mean, he does fit with the city, although who knows how they really perceive him there. Not far-fetched, he could step in quickly, but to me, that's a bad move for Houston. So, CBS Sports ran their candidate list this week in terms of who could replace Cora. Chad Tracy is the obvious frontrunner. Jays got out of the jam there, so they're still 2-2 in the bottom of the fifth right now. But the obvious frontrunner, Chad Tracy, just the fact that he's there, if he can stabilize the team, win some games, the players respond, the Red Sox have every reason to keep him going. He's got organizational knowledge. He knows the farm system really well. He's got relationships with all these guys. And he also, clearly by what Breslau said, he's got the blessing of the front office for the time being. For now, this is the most likely outcome. Alex Cora, and no, I'm not joking, CBS Sports genuinely listed him as a candidate to be rehired if Chad Tracy falls flat. Stranger things have happened in baseball, but Cora could be back even in Boston before the year is out. You also have Will Venable. He's currently the bench coach with the Chicago Cubs. He's been on managerial watch lists for years now. He's well respected, analytically aware, has gone through the apprenticeship process properly, and if the Red Sox want to do a full external search, you would expect Venable's name to be a serious consideration. Oliver Marmol, the former St. Louis Cardinals manager, he was let go by the Cardinals at the end of 2024 after a rocky tenure, so that might give them some pause as to whether they want to look at him or not. But he has been praised by many in baseball for his communication skill and his ability to manage young talent. Marmol himself is only 39 years old, has a long shelf life left as a manager, and a very high ceiling. Now, if you want to go long in the tooth here, you got Ron Washington. He has won World Series with Texas. He's beloved by players and coaches alike across the league. He stepped down from the Angels role because he had personal matters to deal with. He has at times expressed a desire to return to managing, but at 74 years old, he still has the fire, respect from every corner of the game, and the Red Sox would get instant credibility and a veteran presence. At the end of the day, the story is simple. This is a talent and roster construction problem more than a manager problem. Whoever sits in that dugout, whether Tracy, Cora, Venable, anyone you might name, the Red Sox need Roman Anthony to wake up, Marcelo Mayer to take the next step, and the hitting staff to find an approach that works for the players there. And it just has to be unlocked. Oh, just saw both teams lose the challenge just now. Alright, so injury roundup from around the league. Let's do a quick lap and see what's happening. We mentioned Mookie Betts and the Dodgers with an oblique injury. He's getting closer to a return. The Dodgers have been managing him carefully, but when he's back at full health, that makes them so much more better. Juan Soto, right calf strain, he has just now returned. It was very bad timing, and he, so far, when he's healthy, been worth every penny. Carlos Rodon has returned to the mound this week in High A with a rehab start. He should be back probably June-ish. And that just makes Garrett Cole, Cam Schlittler, the Yankees rotation become that much better. We mentioned Giancarlo Stanton with his left calf tightness. He's day-to-day, so he could be back at any point at 36. They just want to keep him healthy for October. We mentioned Spencer Strider with the Braves. He'll be back. Let's see. He's about 2 weeks away, and he'll be making his debut mid-May, I guess, is what that works out to. The Braves are already playing well without him. That's just going to make them that much better. Zach Gallen of the Diamondbacks, he left Saturday's game in Mexico City during the MLB World Tour with a right shoulder contusion. He got hit with a comebacker, so that's going to smart. The Diamondbacks are monitoring him closely, so he's day-to-day, because however his body responds to that. As you would imagine, Gallen is one of the most important starters, and losing him for any length of time would hurt an already injury-depleted pitching staff. Cade Horton with the Cubs, he had elbow surgery, as we mentioned before. Justin Verlander with the Tigers has hip inflammation. He's been out since his first start back in Detroit, expected back soon. He's 43 years old, so that's causing some big questions. It also will take him longer to get back. You have Brent Rooker with the Oakland Athletics. He has an oblique strain, as we said. They've been looking a lot better this year, but that injury is not one that responds quickly sometimes, so we'll see how he does. He's young, so that will work in his favor. Alright, y'all, that's a wrap for today's episode. This week in baseball, here at True North Sports Talk Podcast, we covered the full slate of MLB through 4 weeks. The Dodgers flying high, the Braves just behind them, the Yankees atop of the AL East, the Mets, the Blue Jays. We talked Boston and what they have done. This was a loaded episode, and there's so much more to go. We got 135 games left. For all you Blue Jay fans out there, help is on the horizon as guys are getting healthier the farther we go here. Alright, y'all. True North Sports Talk Podcast. Please, y'all, subscribe to the channel. That helps us bring you more episodes. Jump into the comments using hashtag True North Sports Talk. Let us know what you think of Alex Cora. Let us know who you think is going to replace him. Maybe there's someone on the board that we haven't thought of, so let us know. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next time, keep on keeping on.